In last week's video, I talked about things that I love about living in Scotland, but there are two sides to every coin. And today I'm going to talk about things that suck about living in Scotland. Some of these might surprise you, and at the end of the video, I'm going to let you know whether or not I regret moving from the United States to Scotland. If you're new around here, my name is Peter, and 4 years ago, I left Oklahoma behind and moved to Scotland. Now, some might say that the Scottish people are the biggest complainers in all of the UK, so me making this video might just be cementing my place as an adopted Scot. And before you start rage typing an angry comment or sharpening your pitchforks, let me just say this: no place on earth is perfect, even though Scotland does come very close. I can very easily make both positive and negative observations about both the United States and Scotland. Although if I were to compare Scotland to the rest of the UK, it might be a bit harder to find negative things to say. These are just some personal gripes, and they're not necessarily deal breakers. Or are they? I guess you'll have to stick around to find out. I'm going to kick this off with my biggest gripe, and that is the lack of a third place compared to what I had in the US. If you aren't familiar with that term, a third place is basically just a place that you can gather or interact that isn't your home or your workplace. A neutral zone where you can just unwind, hang out, meet people, and just enjoy a change in scenery. Where I lived in Oklahoma, there were several coffee shops with comfortable chairs, Wi-Fi, and this is the important bit, late opening hours. Back in Oklahoma, several times a week, maybe almost every day, after work, I would go down to the Gypsy Coffee House downtown. They had a comfortable, relaxed environment inside, plenty of outdoor seating, and they were open until like 1 or 2 a.m. But here, coffee shops usually close between 4 and 6 p.m. It's tragic. Yes, the pubs here are lovely, and I really think they're much nicer than most American bars, but if you're not in the mood for a pint or you don't fancy drinking alone, they don't really give off the same vibe. I'm not a partier by any means, but I will go out and have a couple drinks every now and then, but I do miss my big, cozy coffee shops that kind of felt like a home away from home. I've often wondered why this isn't really a thing here in Scotland, or maybe if I just haven't found it. I've talked about opening my own coffee shop, third place kind of thing, but I don't know if the reason why they don't really exist here is just because nobody's done it, or because it wouldn't be financially viable. Let me know what you think in the comments. That leads me to my next point, which is how tiny everything is. This is probably a bigger issue for people like me because I'm on the spectrum and I'm getting my shoes absolutely covered in mud. Autistic, neurodiverse, neurospicy, whatever you want to call it. I've learned a lot over the last couple years about how my brain works, especially as I see it reflected in my son. And things like narrow hallways, low ceilings, and loud and busy environments make me feel claustrophobic and stress me out. This extends to pretty much everywhere here. Everything just feels so compact. Cramped grocery aisles, low ceilings, tiny parking spots, even places like Costco that are considered to be gigantic are tiny compared to the United States. If you're on the spectrum, navigating these places can definitely be overwhelming and overstimulating. And yes, I do realize that the main reason everything is small here is because the entire country is literally the size of one American pickup truck. Now I'm going to talk about the absolute mystery about how it is illegal to have a standard power outlet in your bathroom or toilet. The standard response whenever I bring that up is that it's for safety, but I'm not buying that because Germany has power outlets in their bathrooms and they have the same voltage as well as technically an inferior plug design. And while I'm on this topic, why is the washing machine in the kitchen? It feels so wrong. In the States, you typically would have a dedicated room for your washing machine and dryer. And I understand why that's not so prevalent here just because the houses are so much smaller. But in Germany, the washing machine with all of its glorious 240 volts is in the bathroom, which makes so much more sense. I mean, it does happen, but where do you usually get undressed? Because it's not in the kitchen. I hate radiators. I need to talk about HVAC systems because I miss them so much. I get it. Scotland doesn't need air conditioning very often, but where I live, sometimes you do. And HVAC is so much more than just heat and air. It is a consistent airflow, a steady temperature, and it doesn't take up half your wall like a radiator does. Radiators are the bane of my existence. They're always in the way. Want to put a bookshelf there? Nope. Want to move your couch? Nope. Want to use the downstairs toilet in the winter without making your crown jewels feel like you're part of a cryogenics experience? Well, there's no radiator in that one room, so nope. I have never in my life used a radiator until I moved here. And if I'm ever in the position to buy or build a house, not having radiators will probably be my number one requirement. Have I mentioned that I hate radiators? Look, I love the NHS. It is fantastic that healthcare is free at the point of use, and being in Scotland, I don't even have to pay for my prescriptions. But the appointment system, absolute chaos. I have 5-year-old twins, and while pretty much any time of day is peak mayhem, 8:30 is exactly when I'm trying to get them ready to go to nursery, and it's like trying to put shoes on an octopus while it's doing cartwheels. And I don't have time to stop at 8:30 on the dot and fight with 3,000 other people to try to get an appointment for the doctor, which ends up being a nurse practitioner that doesn't care, and so on. I believe this is a fairly new problem since COVID, and of course it will vary based on your specific doctor's office. From my understanding, my local doctor's office is worse than the typical doctor's office, but it's still a problem that should not exist. I will add a caveat that if there is an emergency, especially with the children, I have found the service to be much better and much quicker in general. Why do windows not have screens here? Every summer, my house becomes a haven for bees and flies, and this would be such an easy problem to fix if they built their windows with built-in screens like they do in the US. Seasonal affective disorder, or seasonal depression, is estimated to be about 50% more common in Scotland compared to the rest of the UK. The entirety of the UK is further north than the continental United States. So unless you live in Alaska, your days in the winter are longer than ours are. Winters are tough. In the dead of winter, full daylight only lasts from about 9 until 3:30 in the afternoon. And I don't even live in the most northern part of Scotland. For many people here, it's pretty common that it's either dark or sunrise, sunset, both when you're going to work and when you're coming home from work, and that's pretty rough. But the flip side of this is that days in the summer are really, really long and amazing. In my last video, I talked about how amazing it is that public toilets don't have massive gaps in the stall like they do in the US, but at least they have public toilets in the US. In the States, it is extremely hard to find a shop, restaurant, or petrol station that does not have a toilet that you can use. And here it's basically the opposite. And while it's fairly common for toilets in the US to be absolutely boggin', at least they're readily available. American diners. Many of them are open 24/7. The coffee is absolute shit, but at least it comes with unlimited refills. The food can oftentimes be both amazing and objectively terrible, and it somehow still just hits the spot. There are many things about the United States that are nowhere near what Hollywood portrays them to be. But diners are one of the few things that sometimes might just come close. And there's something magical about that. Unfortunately, they are not a thing here, and that is a damn shame. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Now, I said at the beginning that I would talk about whether or not I regret moving here. Even though there are things about life here that I don't necessarily like, this is my home now, and I'm not going anywhere except on holiday. Moving to Scotland was one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I will never regret that. If you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like button to let YouTube know. And if you didn't enjoy it, why are you still here? If you're curious to see the opposite end of this and see things that I love about living in Scotland, check out last week's video here, or if you've already seen that, you can check out this video. It might be new to you. That's it for today. I will see you next time. I hate radiators.